Welcome back to Epic Agents, the Best in Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamm, and joining me is yet another Epic agent for this podcast. Lacey Newman is an agent with Compass. She's also the founder of the Elevated Agent Collective, the program to elevate your life and business. Lacey is obsessed with helping other real estate agents show up unapologetically, online and offline, to elevate their businesses and create the lives that they deserve. Lacey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. It's an honor to be here today.
Honored to have you. I was really excited when we connected because I love the content that you're producing, the helpful, meaningful content that you're helping to produce or that you're producing to help agents elevate their businesses, right? So I thought that you'd be an awesome addition to this podcast. So thank you.
Sure. Glad to be here.
Before we dive into the Elevated Agent Collective and the programs that you offer, which all sounds super interesting, share a little bit about your background, just sort of your life story, the 3-minute version, and also what inspired you to get into the real estate industry.
Sure. So I grew up in Georgia, not too far from Nashville. And when I graduated from college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a public relations major, got my master's from UGA, and then I decided I was going to look for a job in the city, in the South, not Atlanta, because I was ready to branch out. And I randomly ended up in Nashville in a pharmaceutical sales job. Did that for a couple years. And as I was jogging around the neighborhood where my apartment was back in the early 2000s, that's when I first started becoming aware of real estate. My parents lived in the same house I grew up in until about 2 years ago. And so I didn't even know what a real estate agent was because we never moved in my entire life. So it just wasn't something I was aware of. But once I moved to Nashville, lived in this beautiful area, started seeing all these signs in front of yards and houses, and I started to become aware of what this was. And I was in my early 20s. I decided to think about buying a condo, and I met my first real estate agent. And she was this girl that was maybe 3 or 5 years older than me. She drove this cute little white Mercedes, and we'd go look at condos together, and she'd pop open that lockbox and open the door for me. And I thought, wow, this girl has figured it out. What a fun job. And this was back in like 2004, which if you look at 2005, it was an even bigger year in a lot of parts of the country than even 2021. And so, I mean, I just jumped on the bandwagon like so many other real estate agents without any concept of what this business really is.
That's funny. I bought my first house in 2003, right around it was a condo, matter of fact, right around that same time frame. Yeah. So speaking of jumping on the bandwagon, I think we were all buying a house at that time.
Totally.
Awesome. So what year was it? Remind me again, what year was it? Was it 04 that you got into the industry?
So 04 was when I started figuring it out. 05 was the year that I actually became licensed. And, I never even ended up buying a condo from that agent. I ended up getting married, long story short, and didn't make a purchase at that point in time. But I was still working my pharmaceutical job when I went through real estate school. And so as soon as I got married, I quit that pharma job and got my real estate license. And I immediately put a sign in the front yard of my new husband's house and sold it.
Nice. That was Absolutely. My first transaction was a family member.
Yeah, like, guess what, honey? I'm selling your house.
That's right.
Great.
Awesome. I love it. What were those first couple of years like, aside from listing your new husband's house? What were those first few years like for you?
Honestly, the first few years were pretty great. I mean, it was, like I said, the market was super hot. It was pretty easy to put a sign in the yard and have a house sell. Clients were abundant, and I definitely felt the stress and strain of being a new agent like we all do, but I had an amazing mentor. I was working in an incredible brokerage with really fantastic agents. And so my first couple years were great. I mean, I think that they totally lived up to what I was expecting to, as a new agent in the business. But then, of course, we all know what happened just a couple years later, and 2008 hit. And so that obviously completely flipped the script and turned everything upside down. And then at the same time, I had my daughter in 2009, I had my son in 2011. And so there was this huge distinction between the first couple years in real estate and then the next few years in real estate. And where I really started struggling was when I became a mom. And I thought, oh, this is going to be such an amazing job to have when I'm raising kids because it's so flexible. Well, little did I know that flexible meant 24/7. It didn't actually mean that I was going to have the freedom that I thought I was going to have. And so my business really started suffering. And more so, I really started struggling internally myself because I didn't feel like I was performing in business the way that I knew that I could. And I was also feeling really guilty because I wanted to be a great mom. I wanted to be there and support my kids and my family. And I ended up really feeling like I was failing in both areas because trying to juggle the two, I just didn't have the skills at that time. And I really, really suffered. And so, to be perfectly honest, I gave up real estate. I quit. I retired my license. I said, this is not for me. I don't like this. This is not working out the way that I thought that it would. And so I retired my license and I said, that's it, not doing this anymore.
I was going to ask, actually if maybe you had stepped away
I did.
for a period of time.
I
Interesting.
did.
Go ahead. I didn't
I
mean to
stepped away
interrupt.
for about 18 months. I retired my license.
Okay.
And then my marriage fell apart. This was 2014. My husband and I decided to make the very, very hard decision to get divorced. Our kids were 3 and 5 at the time. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew one thing, and that was that I was not going to sell real estate. So I was very opposed to it because I thought, how on earth, if I couldn't handle doing it while I had a husband in the house helping me raise these kids, how on earth could I do it as a single mom? But I looked at some other options and I got an amazing opportunity to join a team with somebody that had mentored me in the past. And I took a chance and I got my real estate license back out, dusted it off, and said, okay, I'll give this a year. Let me just give this a year and see if I can make it this time. And what was interesting and what was different about the before version of my business and the after version of my business was that because I had just been through this painful divorce, because I was older, because I had these 2 kids in home at this point, I had this new energy that I'd never had before. And I was just determined that I wasn't ever going to do anything anybody else's way but my own. And so I went against everything that I thought I knew I had to do as a real estate agent and thought was the way it just had to be. And I just refused to do that. And I decided to stop paying attention to what I thought I should do and start focusing on what I really wanted to do. And failure was just simply no longer an option. So I came back and did things completely differently. And that ended up being the secret that made all the difference, was just to stop worrying about what I thought I should do and just focus on what I wanted to do.
The word that was coming to mind when you were describing that change in perspective between your first go around in the real estate industry and your relaunching it, the word that came to mind was determination. Right before you said that you were so determined, that was what came to my mind when you were describing that.
Exactly. I mean, I refused to let the industry take me away from my kids any more than I already was. So I started creating boundaries and I teamed up, and then I ended up creating a team with a business partner, and I learned to delegate for the first time, and I really started focusing on what do I love to do and what lights me up and what gives me energy. And I mean, it's as simple as just deciding to spend a lot more time doing things I like and be okay with the fact that some of the parts of this business I'm just not going to do. Yeah. Because it was just not going to work for me with my life in that moment.
2 words that you just said, boundaries and delegate. Those are 2 powerful concepts especially in real estate, that you don't see often with, agents executing on these two concepts. I like to joke, and a lot of agents, every agent can relate to this, that, when it comes to, you mentioned early in your career, you loved the idea of the flexibility that a career in real estate could offer. And I always love to say that a career in real estate offers the freedom and flexibility to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So,
Yeah.
so we all get texts at 10 o'clock at night. We all get texts at, 8 o'clock Sunday morning, or just like, it's very difficult to turn off. So building those boundaries requires other things, right? You can't have boundaries unless you have partnerships, and a team, and the ability to delegate some tasks that are maybe not in your wheelhouse or not a good use of your time, right?
Right, exactly. And even more so, to take it a step further, you really have to have systems in place. And because all of those things, when you talk about delegation or you talk about boundaries, it sounds very scary. And it is very scary if you don't have systems. And those systems to help your clients understand that their needs will be met 24/7. It just might not always be by you. And what is interesting, and this paradox that I have discovered in creating boundaries with real estate clients, is that actually the better boundaries you have with your clients, the better it is for your clients. So I'll explain what I mean by that. When you hire an attorney or you go to the doctor, you have a certain set of expectations. And I'm pretty positive them answering the phone when you call them on their cell at 10 o'clock at night isn't one of them, right? We would never expect to do that to our family physician. So there is this thing that I believe that agents tend to get so personal and so friendly with our clients that those boundaries become blurred. And then that's how we end up being open 24/7 like Waffle House. But what in fact is the truth is that if you set professional boundaries with clients, it actually leads to them respecting you more, because they start to see you in a completely different way, more like those other high-level service providers that they're used to working with. And when they respect you more, they trust you more. And when they trust you more, they have better outcomes because they're going to listen to your advice. And you're not just going to be a buddy with a real estate license. You're going to be somebody that they look at and they see as the actual high-level service provider that you are. And then we all know that we know what we're doing. We're really good at our jobs. We have a lot more experience in buying and selling homes than the typical person. And when they listen to our advice, they have better outcomes. And so it seems counterintuitive to a lot of agents that, oh yeah, if you stop taking calls at 9 o'clock at night, it's actually going to benefit your clients. But the truth of the matter is, that's really how it goes.
Boundaries don't happen without systems. And,
they don't.
That's a really, really good point that I kind of glossed over, was in order to achieve a level of freedom in your business, you have to have systems in place, right? And I'm guessing that the Elevated Agent Collective, you talk a lot about systems in these seminars. Is that correct?
I do, yes. It's a lot about systems. Where a lot of my students that I work with in the Elevated Agent Collective, where they are in life, it is a lot like where I used to be. It's a lot of women. It's a lot of moms. We welcome everybody, but a lot of the people in my program are like I was back in the day. And I always, when I think back to that moment in my life, I remember that I used to hide in the pantry to take calls from clients because I'd have little kids at home, and then, somebody would call right in the middle of dinner and I'd have nowhere to hide. And so I'd go take a phone call in my own pantry, hiding from my children, which, that made me feel horrible as a mom. But it was what I had to do in the moment. And so many of my students and so many of the people that come into the collective, they're stuck in the pantry too. They're in that moment in life where they're trying to do it all, And we as agents have been conditioned to think that we have to do it all. But what happens when we believe that and we put everything on ourselves is that, number one, a lot of us burn out. That's why the failure rate in real estate is 80% in the first year and 87% in 5 years. Crazy, crazy. I mean, what other industry has that terrible of a success rate for people coming into the industry? But it's because what we've been taught doesn't work. It's not the right way to do it. And so many of my clients and students in the collective are in that place where they want to break through to that next production level, but they're sitting there going, well, I'm already so overwhelmed with juggling everything in my business and my life. How on earth will I ever have more clients, serve more clients, make more money when my plate is completely full? And the answer to that is really systems and boundaries and delegation. And I mean, it's running a freaking business.
Overwhelm is so common. It's rampant in this industry for sure. I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that I count myself in this group as well, that a lot of real estate agents don't receive the kind of business training that they need, to actually run their business like a business.
Correct.
Yeah. So the other thing that you mentioned earlier, I want to circle back to, you talked about your restarting your career as a single mom. Talk about overwhelm.
Yeah.
Talk about stress. And have you read Ninja Selling?
I have not read Ninja Selling, but I took the Ninja course
Okay.
years ago. Yes.
The author, remind me, Larry, I forget his last name. Anyway, I remember a story he mentioned in the book that about how one of his students reached out to him a few years down the road after taking his course and had mentioned that she at the time was recently divorced, broke, with 2 kids under 4 years old, living in her mom's basement. And after going through the Ninja, this is not a plug for Ninja Selling, but
Ninja is a great course.
It is a great course.
I did it myself.
But then after learning these processes and systems and rewiring her mindset, she was able to, within a month, achieve multiple closings and put a deposit down on a house. So that story kind of reminded me of that, and that's one of the stories that really stands out that the author shared in that book. Larry, gosh, I can't believe his last name's failing me right now. But anyway, Ninja Selling. I'll have a link in the description. But Lacey, let's get back to, I also mentioned before I hit record that I have a tendency to digress. So apologies. So I'll get back on track. The stat that you gave me, 80% in the first year, 87% failure rate in the first 5 years. I had a guest on recently that we were talking about that, the burnout rate, and how quick it is and how common it is in the real estate industry. And I didn't know the statistic offhand, and I told that guest that I would find out. Well, you just answered that question for me, but yeah, that's if I were to guess, those would have been the numbers, right? Plus or minus that I would have guessed. So that's staggering, really.
It's staggering, and I count myself as one of those failures. I mean, I quit. So, I mean, I count myself as one of those. And, when you go and you think about the fact that 66% of real estate agents are women and that 87% of real estate agents fail in 5 years, that really says a lot. We're not just failing real estate agents. We're failing women. We're failing moms. We're bait and switching women into getting real estate licenses, letting them think that this business is one thing when it's very much something different. And as you just alluded to, not providing the support that teaches agents not just how to sell real estate, but how to be a CEO. Because that's what each of us are. And what I know and what I've learned and what I've made work and what I now teach my students, nobody taught me. I just had to figure it out. I spend an enormous amount of time reading business books that don't have anything to do with real estate.
Sure.
and being part of business coaching programs that are not real estate related, because there's so much great information out there, but what is readily available in our industry isn't it to me. What I've been exposed to and what opportunities are generally given to real estate agents are really tailored for a new agent. They go to real estate school, they learn some things, you know
Yeah.
a lot of stuff they never use again ever.
Right.
They learn how to stay out of real estate jail for the most part, but they don't really learn how to sell real estate.
Mhm.
So then you get your license, and then the focus becomes on learning how to sell real estate. But then there's not a lot available out there for, okay, now I know how to stay out of real estate jail. I know how to sell real estate. I know how to serve my clients well, but I don't know where to go from here. And making that switch from person with a real estate license to CEO of a business, that's the shift that has to happen if you want the freedom that you were promised in the beginning.
It's a mindset shift, right? You're
It
not so
is.
much a realtor as you are a CEO. It reminds me of The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and the basic premise, the gist of that entire book, which is a classic in the entrepreneurial world, is that it's the curse of the technician who opens a business, the person who loves to cook, or the chef opens their own restaurant and it fails.
Mhm.
The person who loves to repair cars opens an auto repair shop and it fails because the technician is spending too much time being the technician and not enough time operating the business. And
Right.
they know how to repair a car, but they don't know how to run a business.
Right.
And so much of that, I think, applies too to the real estate industry. A lot of real estate
Definitely.
agents are great at selling, or listing or helping a buyer purchase a home, but not so great at running a business and doing all the things that are involved in being a CEO.
Absolutely. And a lot of what happens sometimes, and to go back and use those non-real estate examples, is that, let's say, a an artist loves painting,
Hmm.
and this is a passion, and that's why they made it a career, and then they wanted to take it to another level and they opened a gallery, and then all of a sudden they're spending all their time with, like, invoices and leases and all of the things that have nothing to do with what was their original passion.
Hmm.
And one of the problems that I see in what we often do, and this really can go for entrepreneurs of any type, not just real estate agents, is we lose sight of what we really loved to begin with. And
Hmm.
I often use an example. Haley has been on my team for almost 10 years. Haley is a phenomenal agent. She could absolutely go out there and be solo, have a team of her own if she wanted to, but she doesn't. She stays on my team because what Haley loves is serving clients. She doesn't want to have to worry about marketing. She doesn't want to have to worry about paying the bills. She just wants to go love on her clients and do what she's truly passionate about. And so many of the people that I work with, the agents that I work with, are solos, and they're not happy because they're trying to grow, but they are getting away from the thing that they really love and what brought them into this industry in the first place. And so we have a lot of conversations about teams. And I really truly believe that a lot of what will elevate this profession and create more success and happiness is in our agents is to have this mindset and really move more into a team structure. And a team doesn't have to mean you have to work with other real estate agents. You could be the only agent on the team, but then you need to hire somebody to run the business. You need to hire somebody to do your marketing. Trying to do it all is what holds us all back. And so one of the frameworks that I work through in the Elevated Agent Collective is like, okay, if this is what you love to do, then this is the support you need. Or if this is what you love to do, then this is the kind of support you need. Because I really believe in the entire foundation of my philosophy for success in business is that when you spend the majority of your time doing what you're good at and what you love, you'll be happy. And when you're happy, you'll be your most productive. And so it's really simple. It's just about figuring out where are our zones of genius, what truly lights us up and energizes us, and how do we spend more time doing that, and how do we spend less time doing the things that drain our energy.
I love all of those points, and also something that comes to mind is what is the value of our time?
Oh
So
yeah.
where is our time best spent? Is posting to Instagram, or developing a marketing calendar, um, or doing payroll or accounting? Is that a good use of a CEO's time, or is acquiring new clients, or what's the best use of your time? And for those tasks that aren't in your zone of genius, as you said, I love that term. Um, those are tasks that we really need to delegate, right? We need to, the way to scale a business, you have to delegate. You have to find people to build a team that can handle these tasks, and everyone stays in their own lane.
Right. Yeah. And so I truly believe you don't have to have a team in the sense of you have to work with other real estate agents.
Right.
But if you're an agent, if you're a solo that wants to break through to the next production level, you have to have a team of support around you so that you
Support.
can focus on your money making activities. My boyfriend Jason always laughs at me and kind of rolls his eyes because I don't go to the grocery store. And I know what my hourly rate is. And it's a lot more than what I can pay shipped to deliver my groceries.
Yep.
And I don't enjoy the grocery store. He does. He likes going to the grocery store. So that's what I tell people is, it's not about delegate every single thing that's less than your hourly rate. But if it's less than your hourly rate and you don't like it, you definitely should be delegating it.
Absolutely.
But having, trying to figure out those things, and so many agents are afraid. They're afraid to invest in their businesses. They're afraid to hire. I mean, I have a one-on-one coaching client who we have been going round and round and round about all the things that she wants to do and that she knows she needs to do to grow her business, going around and around for months. She finally got to the point that she was willing to make a hire. She has had, Kylie is her assistant's name. She's had Kylie for like 3 weeks. She has gotten more done in the last 3 weeks since she hired Kylie than in the last year that I've known her. And there's also this thing when you become responsible for someone else, when you have somebody, an assistant, a team member, whatever, it causes you to step up. And it causes you to be the leader that you just aren't when you're operating completely alone. And it makes you show up more efficiently. It makes you show up more consistently. And when there is somebody there with you, it is hugely motivating.
Absolutely. And thank you for the clarification, for correcting me. To be clear, when I said team, I did mean support.
Yes,
Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
I use it in
Well,
that sense. And I've been corrected before. I had an agent on, a $40+ million producer on this podcast not too long ago, that I said, obviously you have a team. And he said, no, I'm an individual producer, but I have support staff. And I said, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
exactly.
You
Well,
gotta be careful in this
honestly,
industry.
and I clarified that because like sometimes team is a triggering word in this
Yes. Yeah,
industry
it is.
because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want a team. I don't want a
Yeah.
team. And what they think of when they think of a team is a whole bunch of agents with, generally one person sitting at the top of the pyramid
And a big
and,
split.
managing a bunch of people. And I mean, I do
Yeah.
have a team. It's a small team on
Sure.
purpose. But yeah, so I mean, it is even a solo agent needs a team in terms of support. But yeah, there's this, sometimes teams get a bad rap
Yeah.
because there is this model that is well known and been replicated over and over in the industry, where that I believe also a lot of times sets new agents up for failure. And so my team has always been very different because I have seen in all these years of doing this, I've seen the same thing happen over and over, which is an agent gets their license, he or she goes and joins a team. They're basically kind of on their own. And the team lead is like, well, go sell real estate. and I'm going to take a cut of it, but there's not a whole lot of structure. And that agent burns out, generally never even gets paid. I have somebody on my team right now who spent 6 months on another team and was basically never paid a dime the entire time because she was just, parked at an open house and left on her own and didn't get any support to be successful. And I don't believe in doing that. And so throughout our history of my team that I've had with my partner, Jonathan, since 2016, if you're a new agent and you want to come be on our team, you can have your license, but you can't sell real estate right away. Instead, you're going to work for us. We're going to pay you a salary. You're going to have a role, whether it's marketing or it's admin or it's whatever it is. And then by virtue of the fact of working for the team, you learn how to sell real estate by osmosis. You're getting paid. There's expectations, you're learning along the way. And then when you're ready to transition into being an agent, you're like 85% of the way there because you've seen it all. You've been exposed to all of it. You've gotten an inside view into what it really means to sell real estate. And even better, you now understand how a real estate business operates. And so this has worked really well for us. And it's, of course, not without it's not completely problem free, but it's worked really, really well. And we have great retention on our team because I feel like we're doing the best we can to set our agents up for success.
Hiring is terrifying. The idea, especially the first time you're presented with the opportunity, a business owner, or in this case, a real estate agent, is exploring the idea of hiring. It is. It's very scary. I remember the first few hires I made in my businesses. Very scary. I did them wrong. I hired fast. I fired slow. I did, it's like this. I didn't know what I was doing. Since then I've connected with a business coach, which is highly recommended.
Agreed.
And still a ton left to learn. But the two positions that I think of that I think when the time comes for an agent to hire, the two hires that I think, the first hire I would say would be an assistant. If I had to prioritize, who I was going to hire first, an assistant, and the second hire would probably be a marketing manager. I would be curious, you are much more of an expert in this than I am. What would be your first two hires?
So I think the very first hire should be a transaction coordinator. Number one, because generally speaking, you don't have to pay them until closing.
Right.
And so I advise agents, once you've gotten a few deals under your belt and you know how to do the paperwork, you should be delegating the paperwork to a TC, because then you can free your time up for business development, but it's not a huge commitment, right? You pay them as you use them, which is wonderful. So then from there, and by the way, I think I was like 14 years into business before we got a TC for the first time. So you should do that way sooner than I did. I can't believe how long it took us to do that. But I was kind of a control freak and I'm good at the paperwork. And so, I didn't see it as something that I should be delegating. But once I did, I was like, oh, I can't believe I waited this long to do this.
That's a good point. I think that's one of the big challenges that we face because we need to hire support staff. I think one of the biggest challenges we have to overcome is letting go of these responsibilities. We just want to control everything. I know so many, especially highly successful realtors, who are just really have a hard time letting go of control, right?
Absolutely. And you can be that way. You can be that way, but it's going to hold you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be willing for things to not be 100% the way you would have done it.
Yeah, at some point you're going to plateau. Like you can't scale. That's not scalable.
You cannot scale a business by yourself.
Right.
And people are not going to do things exactly the way that you would, and they're not going to do it exactly the way that you want. But if it's 80% how you would like it done, that's 100% fantastic. So you just have to be willing to do that. But so first thing I would say is a TC, because you pay as you go, which I think is great. I mentioned Haley, who's been with us for 10 years. Probably the most brilliant hire on the planet for a mom is a hybrid assistant / babysitter.
Ah,
So when Haley was first brought into my life, she was nannying my kids. And within a very short period of time, and let me tell you, this was also at the exact same time I got divorced in 2014.
yeah.
And so for the first few years, Haley like held me up. Truly. I mean, I was a single mom for the first time. I was trying to start this business from scratch all over again. It was awful, but she was my support. She helped me in my house with my kids, picked them up from school, picked me up off the floor when I needed it. And pretty soon I was like, wow, this woman is incredible. Hey, I can find somebody else to pick up my kids if I need to. She really needs to be helping me in real estate. And so for a few years, she did a hybrid role. And it was actually amazing because there would be days that we'd be in the office working together. And all of a sudden I look down and it's 2:45 and I'm like, hey, you keep working on this. I'm going to go pick my kids up from school. Or we'd be sitting there and I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to keep on cranking on this. You go grab the kids today. And so having that hybrid as a parent was brilliant. Highly recommend that. If you're in that place where you're trying to juggle your job and your kids, find somebody who's willing to help out in both areas. From there, I agree. I think marketing is huge. We have had our own in-house marketing associates. We have two currently, as well as an admin with the size of our team as it is right now. But having your own marketing support is massive because I've tried to do it a few different ways. I've tried to outsource it to agencies or, get the support of my brokerage and all that. But the reality is like, I may think I'm marketing one thing one day, but all of a sudden I've got a new listing and it needs to be marketed right now. And I don't have time to wait for a third party. And so having in-house marketing support allows you to really be super agile and, oh, this house went under contract. Well, we're not marketing that one anymore. Now we got this new listing and we're kind of going to pivot right here in the moment. And that has been hugely beneficial to have that. And, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing here. We are marketing luxury goods. It doesn't matter if it's the least expensive condo in town, it is still a luxury good. It is still way more expensive than anything else anybody owns. Our homes are the most expensive thing we own. And marketing is the way that we distinguish ourselves from other agents on our team, in our brokerage, in our market. And I mean, right now, like this is the way. Social media is not just this thing that's optional. Social media now is marketing. It's how I buy everything.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I am seeing it online. I am sitting there scrolling and sitting at night looking at Instagram and I'm like, well, now I need this thing. I mean, that is how we consume. And so if we aren't sharing what we offer in the same place where we purchase, we're completely missing the boat. And so to me, social media marketing is no longer different than any kind of marketing. Like we've evolved from the bus bench,
Yeah.
right? We've
Yeah.
evolved from the shopping cart plaque.
Most of us have.
Most of us have. I mean, there's some of that still
I
out
still
there.
see a few at the store. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that other stuff that works, that it all still is out there,
Yeah.
but it's 2024.
Yeah.
Like digital marketing is where it's at, and it's honestly so much more efficient and so much more affordable and so much more effective than a lot of these old traditional methods. But it's like a new muscle. It's a whole thing. When I got in this business almost 20 years ago, I obviously knew nothing about any of this, and it's all taken learning.
I totally agree that, anytime I don't think the title social media marketing manager really applies anymore because social media, when we think of a marketing funnel, social media is at the top. Like that's the first step of that funnel in most cases that you need to cover, but it's part of an overall marketing strategy. And like you said, it's not optional. Like that's where people are. It's the best value. It's the best bang for the buck. It reaches the most people most efficiently, and you can customize, for the most part, who it reaches,
Yeah.
depending on the message. It's a little tricky when we're marketing real estate, but we can market other messages that will lead prospects to us that maybe aren't real estate related, but that's a topic for another podcast episode. And I also love that you mentioned that you need to be able to react quickly, which is why you brought in in-house marketing staff, because as real estate agents, we never wait until the day before a listing goes live to shoot the photos, do we?
Well, or sellers never call us 2 days before they want to go on the market ever,
Right, right,
right?
right, right.
Oh. They're like, you can get this on the market by Saturday, right? I'm like, oh, sure, it's Thursday. Definitely.
Lacey, I'm this first of all, this conversation's been awesome. I ask all my guests for 30 minutes. We always go past. I want to respect your time, so I'm gonna let you off the hook here in just a minute. But I want to talk about the Elevated Agent Collective. Share some details about the programming that you offer, and then how can listeners learn more about that and connect with you?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, the collective is really it's for the agent that feels stuck. It's we have some new agents that are a part of it, and it can lay some amazing foundation if you are a new agent. Things I wish I'd known when I started selling real estate, but who I really designed it for is that agent that is stuck. They've either been at the same production level for the last few years, or heaven forbid they might be going backwards because of this market. They know that social media marketing is not going away, and they realize that if they don't get on board, there's a whole generation of young people coming up behind us that grew up watching HGTV and grew up with social media, and they don't have any problem showing up that way. But what I always tell people is we're in the sweet spot because we actually know what we're doing and we have experience, and we are great at selling real estate, and we can learn all these new skills. So, but what people don't understand about using social media marketing and developing a personal brand as a way to stay top of mind and generate leads for your real estate business, what most people don't understand is that doesn't happen in a vacuum. You cannot do it if you don't have your business house in order, your financial house in order. You're delegating so that you're spending the majority of your time doing what's actually bringing in money. You have boundaries in place. Like, all of these things work together to make personal branding and social media marketing work for your business. It's not just something that you can sign up for like an online course and all of a sudden have it work. It's a holistic approach. So the format of my program is it involves my full digital course, which is where I've essentially reverse engineered everything that I learned in taking my business from starting over from scratch in 2014 all the way to running our top 1% luxury real estate team. We started 2024 with $150 million worth of listings in our pipeline.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is
Crazy.
awesome.
And so I've essentially reverse engineered all the things I've learned. I am very open about mistakes that I've made along the way, and just really trying to help people get there a lot faster than it took me. So there's the digital course aspect. There is the group coaching. We have this fabulous community. We run it all off of an app now, which is so cool. I feel like such a big girl that I have an app for my program, which is awesome. I've learned a ton about that. But yeah, so we have these weekly group coaching calls. We have this wonderful community, the digital course, lots of resources. I'm really an open book. If I've made something for my team and I can offer it to somebody in my program to help them avoid, weeks or months worth of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what works. Like, I just want to help agents be successful, because it's really, honestly, it's giving a purpose to my pain. This is a way for me to heal from the first 10 years of selling real estate and not doing it well and feeling like a failure. And I just don't want anybody else to feel that way. And I think that by doing this and opening up the doors and allowing more people to be successful and not having the washout rate be 87% in the first 5 years, I think it's going to elevate the whole industry. So that's what I'm really on a mission to do.
It's got to be so rewarding.
It is. It's very fulfilling. I really, really love it.
I've said in other podcast episodes too that I think that the most rewarding thing about being a successful, and I don't count myself in this group, but being a successful entrepreneur or a successful real estate agent is when you're able to take those lessons that you've learned and help elevate and help elevate other real estate agents and help them achieve success without making all the mistakes that we made along the way. I love that you're also transparent about the misses that you've had over the years.
Oh yeah.
I think that there's certainly nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. That's the part of the journey of building a successful enterprise, right? Jeff Bezos said he had thousands of failures but innovating as a result of experimenting, and experiments by nature are prone to failure. And so if we're not failing once in a while, we're not innovating, we're not experimenting. So, that's how you grow. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I can help other people avoid the struggles that I went through, I'm putting out a reel today on social media about how when I had my very first listing, I thought I would go farm the neighborhood. And so I created a flyer, and I thought I had all the time in the world, no money. And so I thought I would just drive around the subdivision and put flyers in everybody's mailbox instead of sending them through the mail. And then a week later, I got a certified letter from the Postmaster General saying I had committed a federal crime by putting things in somebody's mailbox. I had no idea. And so, that's the kind of silly things that you learn along the way. I had absolutely no idea, but terrified. I thought, oh my God, they're going to throw me in jail. I am going to post office jail. and so, there's just so many little things, but I find that being open about the mistakes, number one, they're funny, but just helping, being open and honest with each other. I think the more that we share with each other, the better we're all going to be. And
Absolutely.
that includes our failures as well as our successes.
Creating and collaborating is way better than competing, right?
All the time. There's enough for everybody.
Speaking of marketing, and experimenting and failing, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in social media ads before I finally was able to dial it in to the point where I was really able to crank up that ROI, or return on the ad spend. So, it takes time. It takes a lot of experiments. But someone like you, an expert who has been through the journey and can save an agent so much time and heartache, or especially early in their journey and early in their career, is awesome. I love it.
That's what it's all about.
Lacey, how can listeners find you and connect with you?
Yes, so find me on Instagram. That is my home base. So it's at elevated_agents on Instagram, and shoot me a DM and tell me that you heard me on this podcast. And I've got a great video training on my website. I believe that showing up on video has been the biggest, most impactful change that we've made in our business in the past couple years. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that we started this calendar year with $150 million worth of listings in our pipeline. And I know for a fact that is because I got over my fear of the camera. I got on video, even though I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I would have had to do this in my job. But it has made our business absolutely explode. And so I've got a really quick video training. It's 10-12 minutes that can really help agents understand how to start leveraging video to blow up their businesses as well. And so send me a DM at elevated_agents and just say the word listing, and I'll know that you heard me on this podcast, and I'll send you that free video training.
I love it. And speaking of not optional, that's another really good point. Video is not optional.
Not optional.
Just got to get over it.
Sorry.
And record. Let it, just be terrible in the beginning.
Oh yeah, you have to.
It's the same way for all of us. So you're a good company, but
very much.
That's something else. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been slow to get over that as well in my career too. So I get it. I can relate.
Of course.
Lacey, thank you for the offer for listeners, and of course I'll have links in the show notes and description for this episode. Lacey Newman, agent with Compass, and the founder of the Elevated Agent Collective. Lacey, thanks again for joining the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.